Broad Street Review Podcast, Philly's online hub for arts, culture, and commentary, where art and ideas meet. I am your host, Darnell Radford. Today on the podcast, Ben Behrend and Logan Gabriel Schulman stop by to talk about their Philly Fringe production of Welcome to the Shiva House. In 2020, Fringe is all virtual, and Welcome to the Shiva House will be an interesting online experience. So here is my interview with Ben Behrend and Logan Gabriel Schulman. So welcome to the Broad Street Review podcast. And so today I am virtual with Ben Behrend and Logan Gabriel Schulman, whose production Welcome to the Shiva House is part of the 2020 Philly Fringe Festival. So gentlemen, welcome to the podcast, and Ben, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back. Good to be back.
And glad to be here.
Yeah. So we'll let's play catch up. Ben, tell us what you've been up to in the last 2 years, and Logan, tell us a lot about you.
Ben, you want to kick it?
Yes, that would be great. So it has been a good 2 years since we last spoke in Edinburgh, Scotland. Since then, I actually transitioned into working a full-time job, not in the arts, but still writing and performing. Was writing and performing when we were in normal times. And ultimately what happened after the show that we spoke about, Two Man, One Man, Logan and I had met one another while working as Hebrew school teachers at a synagogue in Philadelphia. And we kind of connected over our joint, professional interests, personal interests in theater making and everything else. And so since then we've collaborated, and I'm sure we'll dive into it through the podcast, but we, through many hoops and loops and everything else, we came to Fringe 2020, and we've written this show, Welcome to the Shiva House. And so I have been good. I've been, like many of my theater colleagues, just pretty saddened, but also impressed by what people are doing, what people are making. And I feel particularly engaged by some of the more innovative things that Fringe is offering. It's really expanded my idea of what like a good show or production can be. So I'm excited to be here, and thank you again.
Great. And Logan, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'd love to. I just want to, Ben, you said many hoops and loops that we've gone through, and I think that's a pretty that really sums it. Yeah, I think in a funny circus and vague way, but it's difficult. I was just talking to my partner, who is a dance artist, and she was saying that, she's a dance theater artist, and she was saying, I wish I was as good a poet and narrative writer as I have become at writing grant applications. It's sort of this funny, it is these hoops and loops of being an artist and spending, 80% of your time writing the applications to do the art, and then having, that precious 20% of time where you get to do it. And so, Ben and I met, I guess it was about 3 years ago. I moved to Philadelphia in August of 2017 after finishing my undergraduate degree in performance theory and religious studies from the New College of Florida. And I really found experimental performance making while I was there in a huge, impactful way. I found theater that, could really matter. I found, I was sort of gravitating away from the spectacle and as a child, had just all I wanted was to be on Broadway. And as you get older and you sort of realize, the systemic
Nobody has
issues,
that dream. No one has that dream.
and you realize the systemic problems, and you're like, oh, I want nothing to do with this terrifying industry, and I just want to make meaningful work. And a liberal arts education, I think, really helped me recognize that sort of criticality and reflexivity that is necessary in our contemporary time. And I was working on my thesis in 2016, looking at how this Jewish practice known as midrash. Midrash is a canon of Jewish texts where rabbis in the 2nd and 3rd century interpreted the Torah and created this whole canonical work that basically sets precedents all throughout the Jewish faith. And a lot of artists contemporarily think that they can sort of enter that. And so I was critiquing that want and also validating that want and trying to see how it might be possible. And without a lot of devising tools, I ended up, while doing thesis research at Headlong Performance Institute in Philadelphia. And so it was a hugely influential time. And basically I realized Philadelphia, while also being my birthplace, was a place I really wanted to be to make work. And so just sort of fortuitously found a job as a 7th grade Holocaust education teacher at Rodef Shalom, where Ben and I met. And it was around the end of 2018, after a number of conversations of how we wanted to make work together, that we sort of we experienced as a nation and as Jewish people the loss at the Tree of Life Synagogue with the shooting in October of 2018. And that really catalyzed a lot of instincts that Ben and I had towards making work of wanting to acknowledge and respect and demonstrate towards this gun violence, which obviously affects far more communities than just the Jewish community. And so started making work to that end. And in that time, I mean, I direct and I playwright and I do set and projection design work as well. I like to sort of jump back and forth between performance art and visual art as practicing mediums. And so the work that Ben and I do has been very holistic. The projects that we've created in the last couple of years bring together a lot of visual arts and, the performative craft, and in the hopes of doing something meaningful. And I think that with the response that we've received so far with Welcome to the Shiva House, I think that through a number of iterations of this project, we have landed on one that really is resonating with people and a need that they have in this particular moment. So I think in a short way that catches us up to now.
Well, that's great. I'm listening to what you said. I was thinking about your culture versus your art. There's sort of this mindset that we need to be chameleons as artists, like be able to sort of fit into any sort of box that's either paying us or just gives us the opportunity to play. And I think now, I hope that we'll start to see more of a focus on the culture that makes us so unique as artists. And so things like this will be something that's like, I'm pretty sure someone's going to walk away from this and say, I had no idea. And now I know. So I think that's interesting. And I do think, a lot of the art that I've been seeing coming up is becoming more personal, which is ultimately what we were looking for too. It's like, how do you become this behemoth of a theater company and still bring the intimacy that brought us in to begin with? And totally. It's the individual artists who collaborate together who have always been able to do that. And I hope now that we are going to start paying more attention to those artists.
Because while as you were, I'm so sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead. I
just wanted to echo, you had said, I don't know if we were recording yet, but you had said the brick and mortar establishments are closed, but Me Inc. is still open for business. It's when these institutions have sort of failed our cultural need in this moment, because as an institution with so many working parts and money and all of this, they couldn't match this time. But individual artists did what they've always done, which is process through creation. And thank God. And also, I think, you're totally right that has given a space and place for artists in an independent setting, a very real spotlight in this moment.
Yeah. So creating during a pandemic, how do you pull focus? How do you focus on your craft, knowing that all of this is going on in the world?
Yeah, that is a good question.
I'll say I think one thing that was helpful is that Logan and I have an established relationship. You know, we weren't starting from like a base point of not knowing one another. So that was important. We had like an IRL situation, but I feel that when we were figuring out what we wanted to do with The Fringe, with a show that we'd written that we no longer felt was possible to do live, we just sort of naturally went towards what could a virtual play look like that we are crafting for this medium. And from there, I think like people who are working in every other setting, we've had phone calls, we've had Zoom meetings, we've had everything in between. There was a period of months where we just, you know, we were talking multiple times a week, but hadn't seen each other, even though we live a 20-minute drive away. And what is added even on top of that, and Logan will, I'm sure, speak about this, is that Logan actually recently moved back down to Sarasota, Florida. So we also were working no longer in the same region, but yet our workflow still worked effectively. So I think it just made me grateful for the technology that was around that allowed us to continue our process. And, you know, even though we're kind of, you know, I guess we're digital natives in some way, I was impressed by how much our flow was still able to operate, considering this like new crazy thing we were trying to do.
Yeah, I want to give you space to respond, Darnell, if that's something that you need.
Oh no, go right ahead.
Yeah, I think I didn't make art for the first many months of quarantine. I was really listless and just like binging like crazy on media. I'm sure like so many others, sort of feeling like pretty hopeless and like confused and stressed out. And I think I still feel all of those those feelings, especially being in Florida in this moment where, you know, basically Florida has decided that the virus no longer exists, which is a really
Disney World has to open.
which is so surreal. But yeah, I think to Ben's point, grateful for technology for sure. And also to give a counterpoint to the kind of creativity that Ben was speaking about, my partner and I had a piece planned that we ended up having to pull from The Fringe. That was a sort of, we called it a nearly bad puppet show about this manatee that we both adore named Snooty, who at 69 years old, having lived the longest of any domesticated or manatee in captivity in the world, died due to human negligence, got stuck in a pipe, a hatch was left open in his tank, and he suffocated. And we were going to do a short performance puppet show for The Fringe about this, and I ended up sort of falling by the wayside to everything else that we have going on in our lives. And I think the reason for that, the reason we couldn't find like the necessary inspiration, timing, motivation, whatever you want to call it, and I think it's a combination of all of those, is that to this particular instant in time, it didn't totally matter. Writing about a manatee that was killed 3 years ago, obviously is a loss, right? And like a significant loss, but not necessarily relative to like gross human like misery, complacence, negligence, etc. And so I think something that really motivated me, and I can't speak for Ben, though I'm sure that I do to a certain extent, was how this piece needed to resonate with our moment, was how we were trying to create something performative and theatrical, but also something that was truly a ritual that people could engage with and find comfort in. And so having the motivation to solve a problem for ourselves that hopefully would solve a problem for other people who are in a very similar boat as we all are, which is a sort of standing grief to ambiguous loss on scales that we really can't comprehend. How do we process this? Trying to process it through the work of this show was sort of in itself motivation, trying to answer or at least respond to like an impossible existential question. So if we had been trying to put on a regular show, I'm not sure that we could have, I'm not sure that I could have founded it myself to just like make something that was just sort of fun or silly or sweet, but something really that had to respond to right now.
So I just want to make sure that's out in the air, the Nearly Bad Puppet Show, because that is something we will definitely look forward to.
Thank you. Yeah, it will.
Everybody wants
happen.
an escape.
What will happen soon?
Bad Puppet Show? He said something about Nearly Bad Puppet Show. It's Nearly Bad Puppet Show. What is it? How many times does it have to resonate before it sticks in the minds? Nearly Bad Puppet Show? Yeah. It's Nearly Bad Puppet Show. This is a Nearly Bad Puppet Show.
I feel like I am falling into a portal from which I can't escape.
Yeah, not anymore. This Nearly Bad Puppet
Nearly
Show.
Bad Puppet Show.
Absolutely have to. It just seemed like a fun escape. You know, I'm seeing YouTube series. Call me later. We'll talk about it.
I'm here for it. I'll hit you up.
So let's swing it on around to welcome to the Shiva house. And so tell us about this piece and tell us what a Shiva is.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, happily. Ben?
Yeah, so a Shiva is the 7-day mourning period in Judaism after the death of a loved one or a Jewish person. It can be a friend, it can be whoever. It's a time of kind of like close mourning. And again, immediately after the death of this person, like the same day. Not same day that person necessarily died, but like the day that person is buried, which in Judaism typically tends to be quite quickly. And there's a lot of ritual to Shiva that exists, but some of the core things in Shiva are that it tends to be in one place, usually the person's home, if possible. Relatives, friends are there, food is there, rituals are attended to, and that is what Shiva exists as typically, in its like most basic form. And part of the impetus for Welcome to the Shiva House is that I don't know if I'd heard something about this specifically with Shiva, but basically during COVID-19, funerals in person were not happening. And if they were happening, they were as few people as possible.
Yeah.
So I'd been hearing about virtual funerals, and from virtual funerals, I'd been hearing about virtual Shivas. And from there, we kind of, because this was already speaking to work we'd been dialoguing with anyway, it wasn't a big step from us to turn about looking at Jewish mourning practices to looking at this one Jewish mourning practice and applying it to our virtual setting. So that's how Welcome to the Shiva House came about. And the structure of it is a live digital performance through Zoom, where a host kind of shares about who this fictional deceased person was. It also consists of a companion booklet, similar in quality almost to a prayer book, but in fact, it's more of like a collage of what grief is like to us. And for someone who knows absolutely nothing about Judaism, nothing about Shiva, the goal is hopefully that this gives you a flavor a bit about what that grieving might look like and what that practice looks like. And then the final thing this performance consists of is an audio experience at the end. So the live digital performance is done, and then you are sent an audio file that you listen to while walking. Because typically during Shiva, you walk around the block, you walk around exiting the place where you're grieving so that you can re-enter the world.
And if I can clarify, typically this would take place on the final seventh day of the Shiva, where for a week you're sort of gathering to console those most bereaved, and on the seventh day, those who are grieving would exit the home and take this walk, sort of as a gesture towards society at large of reintegration, sort of coming back to the world that is happening around those folks who have been given, religiously a week to basically say, we are not a part of this right now because we are dealing with something that is so much deeper than what we could possibly convey to the world around us. And oh yeah, please.
Oh, I was going to ask, what is the energy like at a Shiva? Because media leads us to believe that it is a hilarious affair.
Yeah, I don't think that's incorrect. I think, plenty of people who have been historically marginalized or maligned in any way, I think really find humor as a way to deal and cope with that sort of grief. And I don't think Shiva is any different. Very frequently, at an in-person Shiva, which is really, I have not attended myself a true virtual Shiva, so I can't necessarily speak to the quality of emotion. But yeah, I think while people are grieving, it's often a place for, joking about this person, telling stories that, this person would have appreciated or was a part of, where people can sort of revel in their life. I think it shares elements of a wake, that can have these sort of joyous moments. And, Jews also, like any people, or peoples, love to eat. Like it's just a part of all ceremony all the time. And, so I think there is something with, generally the spread at a Shiva that is like joyous, or at least recalls that sort of joy of eating, tasting, feeling, consumption. I think our Shiva that we have manufactured for performance has elements of that. We definitely didn't want it to be a dour affair where we're berating an audience for 25 minutes over, the pain that we're all to some extent feeling, but rather wanted to share these sort of heartfelt and at times like very jubilant memories of the person and people that we are remembering and memorializing. So yeah, I think that it definitely straddles the line between a number of complex emotions, but I think humor or revelry is not absent from a Shiva. I think that is an apt observation.
So, so while the two of you are this production, is it safe to say that it is a solo piece?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I think I think about that sometimes because the show that another show that I've written literally spoofed the one person show. So it's interesting that I keep on returning to this format and kind of changing it around in ways that I like and that I'm able to collaborate with an artistic partner for. I'd say that at its essence, it's the Zoom performance is a solo show, but I think it's so collaborative, both in terms of like the technical moderator who serves besides the host and literally can, troubleshoot tech problems, offer the digital companion booklet. I mean, it's almost like you are now a stage manager who's become a character in this piece. And additionally,
but technicians are in a solo show. It doesn't change the fact that it's a solo show, right? Even like if there's like a curtain, like a curtain speech, it's still a solo show, right? But I think with the important caveat that while this show does have like an individual performer, and as Ben said, we swap on who's performing and who's doing the technical moderation every performance. It wouldn't really be possible if we didn't have like some semblance of an assembled audience. I think because we ask everyone to turn on gallery view. We don't want you just watching us and what we're doing. The point is that you see a room full of people gathered for the same reason, which is how a Shiva works. So without everyone there watching with their videos on and doing, there's participatory rituals. We ask people to have like a candle on hand or a piece of fabric to do certain activities together. Without seeing everyone do it, I think there is something lost in the experience and like the communal the communal experience. So I think it is a solo show in that there is specifically one performer, but I think it sort of requires the audience gathered as an ensemble to really sell it.
Yeah.
So if there are any, what are the similarities and differences in your approach to the piece as individuals? So when you are the lead and not the tech, so what do you bring to the performance that is similar and different?
Well, one thing that immediately comes to mind that's just literally a just funny thing is I choose not to curse during this piece. And it's not because I don't curse in regular life, because I totally do. For some reason, that's just a quirk I've noticed in like different theater pieces I've written. I'm just like, I can't do it. Maybe
he really
like
can't, Darnell. I've tried and I've pleaded.
Yeah,
he cannot.
It's something. Maybe it's just the fact that like I also perform a lot doing comedy for kids and younger kids, so this like muscle's already there. But besides that, like quirk,
we got a clean comic here.
Yeah, we got a clean comedy, all clean drama.
I don't know. He doesn't curse, but he's very prejudicial. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's a joke, obviously.
I think that the big thing that I'd say that's interesting about it is that some of the aspects of the characters or the character that we're portraying have autobiographical elements to them. And because of that, they do feel like they strike me differently. They resonate with me than they would with Logan. And I think those are the things that immediately come to mind. I also just think it's extraordinary and interesting to see the world and the emotion of another performer taking a text and applying it in their body, in their language, in their accent. So,
talking about me?
Yes, yeah, talking about you.
So general.
So it's those are the things that kind of come to mind when I think about it.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so Ben didn't quite complete the thought, which is reasonable. So Ben doesn't curse, but I curse plenty throughout the piece. And yeah, I think for Ben, there are certain autobiographical moments. Myself, there are certain autobiographical moments. And I think I don't really work in comedy. So Ben and I think our portrayals often vary in that way. Ben has like this eternal smile. And so going into some of the monologues that have, really like upbeat feel, like this person lived a full life. Let me talk about them and how incredible that life was, fulfilled across, decades of their time. And then there's other monologues where like, oh, I had a friend who was like in her 20s and she's passed away. And I don't think, Ben or the character that Ben is portraying, and the character that the only character's name is the host, sort of as a nod to Zoom and that sort of two-dimensionality that it implies. I don't think Ben's character is happy when he is talking about this 28-year-old who has passed away. But I do think that there is like an eternal sort of like effervescence and joy in Ben that comes across, and especially in his comedic training that pushes through. And so even in like these dark moments, there's still like this glimmer of like hope and positivity in Ben, which I really admire. I, on the other hand, only work with like the most somber of topics, like just, you know, the classic philosophy student who's just like doom and gloom. And so I'll watch our performances side by side. And yeah, mine definitely, I think, like is more dour, is more serious. I don't think it's intentional. It's just, you know, the sort of the beauty of those two worlds, as Ben said, that live in our bodies.
There's a video project at the end of this where you go back and forth in those performances. Tell us so as we are speaking now, you've had a few performances, so you've had a chance in both roles to observe the audience. And so tell us a little bit about how the audience is, you know, the final piece in this, and how they are engaging in the performance.
That is such a good question.
Yeah, we hadn't been asked that. We were on another podcast, and yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, yeah, a humble brag. No, I was going to say the things that are interesting are that there have been people in reviews, but also just visually, you see people so wrapped in attention in a way that, having been on Zoom meetings where people are so clearly doing something else, you really get the sense that they are engaged in this in a big way. And it's powerful to see that. You know, I don't step out of my performance and think that, but when I look back at the recording, you really see an engagement that's extraordinary. And it reminds me of like when you're sitting in the audience of a more traditional show and you're really just captured by a performance you're seeing. I think part of that is the fact that we do have them engaging with actual actions, physical actions.
Materials, yeah.
So there's a responsibility there, but there's also, you know, an interesting flip side to that. There was a person who was in our show and was there and seemed to be totally there, and then at one point just kind of left suddenly. And it kind of reminded me of like an audience member leaving during an intermission or anything else, except this time there's no like awkward, I mean, there's, you know, the awkwardness is like a blip because then they're gone into the internet sphere. So,
and also you can't know why at a theater, you know, I guess either someone left because they didn't like it or because they had an emergency. With Zoom, it could have been 1,000 things, anything from like a limited Wi-Fi connection to, you know, you name it. They're in their house experiencing regular life. So it's hard to say, but yeah, Ben, I think that really crystallized it. It's been very neat to watch people exist in it, and be a part of it. And I do think, yeah, having people engage with the participatory nature of it, makes them be more alert. You know, I hope it doesn't keep them on their toes, but is something that is inviting and that like people are sort of waiting for the next moment where that will occur. And we've also received, I mean, just really beautiful sentiments from, you know, friends or family who have seen it, you know, explaining that this really connected to an experience that they've had recently, or, you know, just the time that we're existing in. To get that sort of feedback, you know, if you can make one person feel that way in a show, I think like you've done a good job. Yeah. And not just a number of people are reaching out and letting us know that has been their experience. It really, it validates the whole project. You hope that you're not doing something and taking up space in a difficult time that is with something that is sort of just masturbatory. And, you know, to know that people are really diving in and allowing it to interact with their own experience. That's what you make the work for. So that has been, yeah, really great. And it's also just funny to see people like leaning in to their cameras, like, you know, sort of watching for what's coming.
I appreciate too that it's not just like, yeah, it's totally, and it's such an interest. It's a different demographic that reaches out. You know, it's not just people who are Jews or familiar with Judaism. It's people that, you know, we tried to make it accessible enough
and universal
enough whereby people wouldn't feel like cut out from it. Although that's not to say that we didn't like strip it of what makes it unique, because I don't think either of us was interested in that. I mean, that's what makes any sort of theatrical experience interesting, that you want it specific enough whereby you can really like, you can view into that world, but also not so specific that you feel like you're shut out. So it's been great, and I appreciate that question a lot. I hadn't had a lot of time to reflect on it.
And Darnell, it's like you said, people like hopefully walking away who aren't Jews or who are saying like, oh, I learned something. You know, I think like the most potent experiences that I've had consuming art is when like someone takes a piece of their culture, a piece of themselves, and regardless of how accessible it is to me, experiencing that through their performative concepts is generally like the most beautiful part of that experience. So, you know, even if someone's not understanding a Hebrew prayer, they're still standing when we ask, and so they become a part of it. And so they're hearing this language that they don't know, but feeling the rhythm and the vibe, and feeling the rhythm and the vibe. That's our show's motto.
Well, I always find value in a conversation that happens in the middle of the production, because it's different than a conversation that's had before the production begins. So, you know, if we haven't had a chance to experience, no one has had a chance to experience it. This is a feature, you know, where it's just like, what can we expect? But now you've lived it. So now you can give us more insight, and you're seeing more things. And so with that, and it being virtual, have you come across any hiccups or revelations as you've been able to produce this? And if so, how did you work through them, you know, in the moment where you have everyone's attention?
Yeah, I mean, initially, you know, so we wanted to, something we talked about a lot was, how do we make theater for a format that we're already tired of, and that so many people are already tired of, which is, you know, like the video call, right? And we realized, you know, like a lot of artists in the Fringe, it's not enough to just take any old play that was made to live with real beings on stage who are breathing the same air as the audience members, to just like put all of those people in disparate places in boxes and say like, yeah, just like pretend, you know, like that you're talking to one another in the same place. That it was necessary to play within the form. And while a lot of these sort of Zoom plays that have been happening during the pandemic and the quarantine have used this sort of format of people just sort of talking over the platform, we really wanted to have a dialogue with the platform. And Ben has said it really beautifully in the past. How do we use the platform sort of as its own character? How is it playing along with us? And so as we were writing, we looked at how do we use the platform, write for the platform, but also not necessarily have our characters acknowledge the platform. How do they keep that ambiguous? And ultimately, it was a huge challenge for us. We had like some arguments, some heated conversations about like how to make it function, and ultimately sort of came up with this moderator that could live both as an attendee of the Shiva, but also take care of all of the Zoom stuff before and after the play, dealing with what people should do and what people should expect and how they can negotiate with the space. And then we have, you know, the solo performer come in and just go, and they just go and they just go. And luckily in performance, we haven't actually had any like big digital snags. There have been moments where audience members couldn't get in. Maybe they had the wrong link. I know that Fringe Arts was sending out like a calendar that had a Google Meet link as opposed to the show link as well. So I know that there were some challenges there, but on our end, I think it's really been so helpful to sort of have this non-character technical moderator that is sort of like, hi, everyone, you're seeing behind the scenes right now. I'm here to help. Yeah. And now I'm going to disappear into the crowd so that you can have preferably an unmediated experience. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's also, go ahead. I was just going to say the other thing. No. The only other thing is that it's sort of funky to have like a play-by-play. Like we would record some of these, and you can do this with a stage show too. But, you know, we would have a meet session and we could refer, I don't know if we actually ever did this, but I know I did this personally. I would watch a recording of myself and then I could hear what Logan's note was to me. Or maybe Logan could hear my note to like him about like what we'd just spoken about, and we had a physical evidence of it right there. So that's my other item to add on.
Okay, so how can our listeners join this experience?
Oh, very easily.
Yes. So welcome. So we have 4 performances left. 2 I'm the solo performer in, 2 that Logan is the solo performer in. You can go to the Welcome to the Shiva House show page on the Fringe website. Additionally, we have social media available. We can each kind of share our websites and handles now. Mine is
Sure.
benjaminbehrend.com.
And you can find some info also at loganschulman.net. That's Schulman with an SCH. And just so people hear it, the Fringe Arts website for our particular show's page is fringearts.com/event/welcome to the Shiva House with a hyphen between each of those words.
Yeah. And we'll have the link in the description as well.
Oh, and additionally,
it's also free.
Oh, it
free
is,
to
yes.
RSVP.
Totally free. And additionally, Ben had mentioned the physical booklet that is a part of the performance. People can email us at schulman.and.behrend@gmail.com and request to have a physical copy sent to their address at no cost. And if people do that within or before 7 days, a 7-day window before their show, we'll try and get that to them so that they have it for the actual performance. And if people don't request it, it's not a problem. I send, or whoever's the technical moderator at the time, sends a PDF of the booklet to everyone at the top of the show so that everyone can participate.
Great. Did we miss anything? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I honestly feel good. I feel
good.
I feel really great questions, Darnell. Thank you so much. It was really just a pleasure chatting about it with you.
Well, I'm brand new at this, so I'm glad that you guys were very comfortable, working this out. 10 years is not enough time to call yourself an expert at all.
You just need those 10,000 hours. Just 1,000 hours a year.
Crazy. I've enjoyed this conversation. There were things that I learned here that I didn't know ahead of time, of course, because that's the whole point. It's about discovery. The production is called Welcome to the Shiva House, and it is part of the 2020 Philly Fringe Festival. We will have a link in the bio. You can go to fringearts.com and search. You can probably just type in Shiva, and it'll be the first one that comes up.
I would assume
Welcome to the Shiva House. But Ben and Logan, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. And thank you for not letting a pandemic stand in the way of being artists and finding a way to get your art out into the world and allowing us to be a part of this conversation with you. So really appreciate that.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Darnell. That is so sweet. It was honestly our pleasure to chat with you about this. And thank you so much for giving us the time.
Yeah, likewise. And hopefully I'll speak to you again in 2 years. Exactly. Exactly this date.
Yes, I know. I feel like everything about, like, I had to rush to get everything for Edinburgh, like, refunded and everything, because I had definitely planned airfare well in advance. And this time was going to be a little different because I made a friend my first year there, and he is still there. And also my partner, Matt, has family there. So between the two of them, yes, this was going to be the breeziest Edinburgh ever. So, but we still have that. But I miss walking along those streets. I miss the Four Seasons in a day. I miss, shopping at Primark. I miss English breakfast. I miss the street, buskers. I miss Drunk Lion,
Yeah, Chris,
who's still very much as busy as he ever was, you know. But I'm so glad that the art has not been put on hold, and just like I was saying before, just like the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, when companies and artists had to rethink what they were doing. We took a second, but then we bounced back. We had more intimate pieces. Maybe you didn't have a full-on musical. Maybe it was 4 characters on, you know, in the production or something like that. But we figured out a way, and we managed to resolve. And it's either to our benefit or to our detriment, because if people see that we can do it with shoestrings and gum, then they think all we need is shoestrings and gum. So the one thing, even though this production is free to attend, is there an opportunity for an attendee to support this production?
Oh, yes. Thank you for asking. We are terrible capitalists, very much so. There is the ability to donate. With your ticket, you get a know before you go email from Fringe Arts, and there is a link there by which people can donate. There is Ben's Venmo, which I think is at Benjamin_Behrend. Is that correct?
I think that, or Dash.
Okay, so it's one of the two, but that won't help you if you are not editing this out. And there's also a link that we will send at the end of the show. There it is, Benjamin-Behrend on Venmo. And there's also a link that we send out at the end of the show where people can access that audio file for the conclusion. And in that webpage, there is the ability to support the work through PayPal.
Yeah. All right, so get your snacks lined up around your computer screen and get your virtual wallet ready.
It will be awkward because if you eat snacks while you watch. We will all see you eating snacks while Ben pretends to cry.
It'll be very slow, like
the doily.
Like really quiet crunching.
Yeah, sir, could you mute your screen, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. That would be great.
Or the new thing, everyone's tapping their ears.
I'm thinking about how you know, what would a virtual house staff do in a Zoom meeting? You have a separate conversation. Excuse me, if you could mute your screen, that would be great. Well, of course you can mute them, but I think it would be interesting to see, you know, what everyone else is doing, because, you know, of course we're being distracted. There might be a family behind you. There might be another screen on in one of these, but at the same time, they're there for this meeting, for the event.
Yeah, I live across the street from a park. And so I would say 100% of the performances I've given so far, I am sure that you can hear children screaming in the background. And I don't know if that makes the piece more wholesome or creepier. Probably both.
Yeah. Well, again, it was great chatting with you both. And we're going to put this up as soon as possible so that there's more than enough time for people to engage in the productions that are left for this. So Ben and Logan, thank you so much for chatting with me. It was truly a pleasure.
Thank you, Rep Radio. Thank you, Darnell.
Thank you so
and
much.
We'll talk again soon, of course.
That sounds good. And just be safe and healthy.
Yes. And wear a mask. I've got one.
Indeed. Wear a mask. You can put this at the top of the podcast. Wear a mask. Come on. Wear it while you're listening to this.
Exactly. You know, you want to be cool like the cool Philadelphians. You put on a mask.
In the habit.
Wear a mask. Oh, and also, you know, find a way to ask Logan about Nearly Bad Puppet Show.
I Heart Snooty coming to televisions soon, but not soon enough.
It's out there in the world. People are lining up to finance this thing, so you got to get a move on.
Nearly Bad Puppet Theater.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. We'll talk again soon.
Head on over to our website at www.broadstreetreview.com and click Get Involved at the top. While you're there, Help keep us running and click contribute to find out how. Connect with us on social media, on Facebook and Twitter at Broad Street Review. Thank you for helping to keep the conversation going.